بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق والمرسلين سيدنا محمد الصادق الوعد الأمين أما بعد. So inshallah today probably will be the last session visually that will talk about Ahkam and Tajweed. Inshallah next one will be more about hands-on and reading and explaining with the Quran in front of us, and we'll be reading from inshallah from Surah Al-Baqarah. Today we'll talking about the Ahkam, specifically the characters of letters. We've mentioned previous class about the exits of the letters. Now we need to know the characters of each letters. So now the characters of the letters divided in two different sections. The first section, characters that has opposites, and the second one is characters that doesn't have opposites. Now the one it has opposite, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, about 5 branches. The first branch is called al-Jahr, and al-Jahr is basically loud or loudness. Some letters are loud, and some letters are like as the scene is not loud as much as the dad, Allah. So, what does that mean? Al-Jahr. The word al-Jahr means منع جريان النفس, when the breath stops when you pronounce that letter. Example, the ba, ab. So the air will be stopped all of a sudden, and will make a lot of pressure on that letter. Then it's gonna come out. That's why we call it jahr letter or a loud letter. And there is about 10 different letters, and it's combined in one word. Do we have to memorize it? No, but just know them. It's combined in one word, which is فحثه شخص فسكت. So the fa and ha and kha, all of these فحثه شخص فسكت, all these letters that are combined in one word, just have in mind it's jahr letters. Now, if we talk about the opposite, as we mentioned, this category has opposites. The opposite will be the rest of the letters. Do we have to memorize them or know them? Well, yeah, it's good. If you know these, فحثه شخص فسكت, the opposite of these letters will be the opposite, which is not loud, it's really secret letters. The second category is looseness. Some letters are very loose, and we'll give example, and some letters are very strong or tough letters. And there is in between. Well, الرخوة, and it has an opposite, as we mentioned. هي جريان الصوت, when the breath, when you talk about that letter, when you mention that letter, the breath will be normal, but the sound of it will be a little weak, because of the makharij, because of the exit of that letter. And the opposite is in between, or the medium, and the strong. Example of الرخوة will be, I know I was looking for a website, but it all was like last minute. But inshallah, I'll send you inshallah a better websites regarding those inshallah. Okay, let's talk about the shidda, which is the opposite of ar-rakha, which is strength. Not strength, that was loudness. Yes, this one is strength, which امتناع جريان الصوت, when you mention that letter, the sound will all of a sudden stop. With the exit of that letter will become stronger. Let's give example. Jim, ij, iq, up, ib. All these are strong letters. What about the one in between? The one in between, it's combined. It's neither very strong or very loose. It's in between, as it is. Like it's combined in word lan Umar. Lam mim noon ain mim ra Umar. Okay. So the third category or third branch is al-istifal. What is istifal? Al-istifal is the tongue, when you mention that letter, will be going down. Will go down. What do I mean by down? Literally like this. Examples will be sad, sa. When you say sa, the tongue will become literally on the bottom of the tongue, on the bottom of the mouth. And the opposite of al-istifal will be when the tongue is not on the bottom will be either rising or all the way up. Why do we learn about these characters? As we mentioned before in previous class, some letters have the same exact exit. And in order to distinguish between dal and tha and va, they have exactly the same exit. The only way to distinguish is knowing the criteria of these letters in order to distinguish them between the others. Okay. Yeah, when we mention that letter. And from the criteria of that letter usually will be very weak, al-istifal. And the opposite of it, it's called al-isti'la. And the word isti'la in Arabic means al-ulu, which is rising. Also, uh, from that word itself, irtifa'u lisan, the tongue will be rise uh, until it hurts the hard palate or the palate when you pronounce that letter. And those will be example: kha, sa, da, ghain, ta, qaf, va. These are very strong letters, and the strong among them is ta, ta. Um, and please don't get confused between ta and ta, because some people say it in between ta and ta, and not exactly ta and not exactly ta. They're making a new letter, which is wonderful. Which is we don't need to worry about it. Well, try to avoid it. Okay, so the fourth branch, which is called al-infitah. And what is al-infitah? And of course, it has an opposite. Al-infitah هو تجافي كل من طرفي اللسان والحنك الأعلى. So now it's like both of them together combine when the tip of the tongue and will touch the hard palate, and the breath will be coming out at the same time when you mention that letter. Example, we'll choose only combining four letters. الصاد والضاد الطاء والظاء. You notice ص ض ظ. The tip of the tongue has to touch the hard palate and the upper teeth as well. And the opposite of that as well, which is the rest of the letters, that it doesn't have to do that. Now the fifth branch in that category, the opposite, the characters that has an opposite, which is al-ismat. Al-ismat. And what is al-ismat? هو منع إفراد حرف أصلا في الكلمات الرباعية. Now, الكلمة الرباعية means basically the word that has four letters, or الخماسية, or the word that has five letters. Those words لتثقل النطق بها, because it's gonna be very heavy to pronounce it. Like example, مذلق. مذلق. Now that it's because it becomes very heavy. مذلق. Okay. Yeah, and the opposite of al-ismat, something called al-idlaq, which is totally the opposite, and it's combined in these letters, which is al-fa'u, wa-ra, fa, ra, mim, nun, lam, ba. And it's combined in one word. It's called, not one word, it's like three separate words. Farra min lub. Farra min lub. Okay. So that's it for um, the ahkam of the characters of the letters. Now we'll talk a little bit for like 5 or 10 minutes about the ahkam or ra. And that will be inshallah covering inshallah most of the ahkam. Then inshallah next time will be starting from the Quran. Now ahkam or ra, or the rules of ra. Now it's gonna be depend. Now why do we have ahkam for ra? Because ra could be either thick letter, or thin. Example, Ar-Rahman. Okay, now here is thick. What about Fir'aun? Why don't I say Fir'aun or Ar-Rahman? Now you might say, oh, it doesn't sound good. Well, yes, because we're used to hear it that way, but why? Now, subhanAllah, there is a beautiful thing behind it. Why do we make it thick? Sometimes when we talk about Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman means the name of Allah. And when you mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do make it with majesty and royalty. And tafkhim means to make it thick. It's a show of respect. And the opposite, when we're talking about the pharaoh, فرعون, فرعون, we say فرعون to make it a little or to make smallify it. So, subhanAllah, there is an interesting meaning behind that. But the rules in Quran, how do we know? Well, if the ra itself has a fatha or a dhamma on top, immediately it has to be thick. Simple as that. What if it has a kasra on it? Well, if it has a kasra, it's going to be the opposite, which is tarqiq, which is a thin ra. As the example, fir'aun, fir'aun, and ar-Rahman. Look here. Rabbana, not Rabbana. No, it doesn't sound good, right? Because it has a fatha. Let me make it a little bigger. No. Okay. That's fine. The ra, it has a fatha, so we make it thick. ربنا, it has a dhamma. تن, yeah. تنظرون, not ذرون, ذرون, ضارون, ضارون. قر, قر. What if it has a sukoon? Interesting. Well, if it has a sukoon, just look at the letter before. As simple as that. The same rule apply. If it has fatha, dhamma, now small secret. If it's on top, it doesn't matter. If it's on top, make it thick because fatha and dhamma is always on top. If it's in the bottom, well, immediately it has to be kasra. Now here, is it qarya or qarya? Because it has a fatha, we make it thick. Qaryatin mursalin. Look at this one here. Okay, now here the ra has a sukoon, then the alif has a kasra. So do you make it ارجع or ارجع. So I make it thick, a thin ra because it has a kasra before. So I say ارجعي or ارجع فرقة بالمرصاد. All of these are example of kasra on tarqiq, which is thin ra. Okay, I hope that was clear. And it shouldn't be complicated. But there is some exception if there is a ya before the word khayr, even though the kha has a fatha, then there is a ya sukoon, then there is a ra sukoon. In that the case, if there is a ya, that's the only condition that even though it has a fatha, but it become thin ra. That's some exception. You know, every rule has exception. This has a little bit of exception. Now let's talk about tarqiq. That was most of them are thick. Tarqiq, as we mentioned, kasra. If the ra has a sukoon, or it has a kasra itself, by the way, or the letter before, if it has if the letter itself has a sukoon and the letter before has a kasra, yeah, in this case, ra by itself, it is not riz, it is, even though I'm doing it with kasra, but I'm not making it thin. Riz, it is, rizqan, fasbir, khay. We've mentioned khay. What if it has sukoon and the letter before also has sukoon? Well, guess what? We go to the one before. Are we gonna keep going forward? There's no way that you will have more than two sukoons next to each other in Arabic. Yeah, there's no way. But how come we have here two sukoon? Well, because when we pause on the word itself, we change the last letter to sukoon. So technically the word is khayran or khayran yara. The word is khayran yara. There is a continuum you connect it to the next word. It's going to be khayran, double fatha. But in this case, or khayran, we changed it to sukoon because we stopped. We're going to say khayr, khayr, khayr. And that's the only exception as we mentioned. And dhahir, not dhahir, dhahir. Okay. Okay. And sometimes it could be either tafkhim or tarqiq. It doesn't really matter. Like asri, asri, asri. It goes both ways. Yeah, and that inshallah will conclude today. I know it's very short. I'm gonna talk a little bit about qalqala, and then inshallah we will stop. So, okay. Qalqala. What is qalqala? Qalqala is bouncing the letter or making the exit of that letter is shaky. Like iqa, iqa, id. Now, the qalqala, it has its own letters. I'm trying to find the right one, but it doesn't matter. I already know it. Alhamdulillah. So what is qalqala? Qalqala is basically shaking the letter and shaking the exit of the letter. So it has its own letters, and there is a condition. in order to make the bouncing letter. Well, what is the letters of qalqala is combined in one word, قطب جد qa qa ba jim dal. All of these letters, if we see them and they have a sukoon, we have to bounce them. That's the only condition. Example, قل هو الله أحد. When we stop on dal, we change it to sukoon. So we say أحد إد إق بالحق. Okay. That will be it, inshallah, for today. Is there any questions?
Alhamdulillah, no. I look forward to next week.
All right, sounds great. Okay.
All
Let's
right.
say the dua and then inshallah we'll conclude inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سلام.